tax increase our working families will have to bear. As a product of public schools, a former college educator, and as the Assemblywoman for District 27, I have historically supported state and local investments into our schools. Here locally, I supported Measure M and Measure C, which helped Fresno Unified School District and the State Center Community College improve facilities and build new schools. However, Measure E is very different. It is not a bond for local schools. It is a Fresno County only sales tax increase for a state-owned university. Remember, it's a state-owned university. This means that you and I will be paying 1/4 cent more anytime we make a purchase. Measure E is a misguided tax increase on working families already struggling to make ends meet. Today, our working families are facing higher prices at the pump, in the grocery stores, and increasing housing costs. At a time when the cost of living is on the rise, Measure E is not the right solution for Fresno County taxpayers. Supporters of the measure minimize the financial impact of the sales tax increase because guess what? They all can afford it. The people that I'm concerned are the residents that are low income or on a fixed income, which we know we have many of those seniors in our community who cannot afford to pay a penny more. These residents live in my district, in the communities of Huron, Mendota, San Joaquin, Firebaugh, Tranquility, and even here in the city of Fresno. The issues attempted to be addressed by this measure are regional and state issues that should not be shouldered by only asking Fresno County families to pay more. Supporters of Measure E have said that this local measure is needed because we cannot depend on the state. While that might be a challenge this year because we are facing a deficit, as we all know, it wasn't an issue last year when I was able to secure over $300 million for this region for my district. In the years past, if you guys recall, the state of California budget had a surplus. And I asked, where were all the Measure E supporters then? Why did they fail to request and demand that the state give us our fair share for the university improvements? I will be very honest, not one person supporting Measure E came to speak to me to advocate for state resources to come to the Fresno State University last year to address the issues they claim we need to pay more taxes for. There's a number of other reasons why I also oppose, like there was no community input into the design of a over $1 billion sales tax increase. If you guys look at the fine detail, there's an oversight committee of 7 people that over the course of 25 years, we're going to pay them $14 million. What could we do with that $14 million? But instead pay 7 people. I don't recall any oversight board of any local measure that pays any of the oversight committee. So we need to be wary. This seems so wrong to me and a waste of our taxpayer money. And then to add insult to injury, the benefits of the measure are not guaranteed to truly benefit the residents that will bear the greatest burden. Again, the residents that will bear the greatest burden. I may be able to, afford it, but I know that those families that can't are not guaranteed a seat to come to Fresno State. They're not guaranteed any of those scholarships. And so I have a problem with that. But what is guaranteed is that they pay more regardless of them ever stepping foot on this university. And to top it off, this new and improved measure is more expensive than the last one that we all rejected. So I urge every single Fresno County voter to once again reject this misguided $1 billion sales tax increase. Vote no on Measure E. Next, we are going to have former Congressman George Radonovich.
Good morning, everybody. My name is George Radonovich. I'm a candidate for the State Assembly. And during my time in Washington, I was a steadfast supporter of Fresno State and remain so today. But Fresno State is just that. It's a state university. It's owned by the state of California. And the people of Fresno County should not be burdened with a tax increase to pay for improvements that the state should be doing of its own. As your representative in Sacramento, I will fight for the benefit of Fresno State in the right way, which is by getting adequate funding to make Fresno State the top state university in the state of California. I'm running against David Tangipa, who supports this tax increase, and people need to know that that he's for taxes. We should not be sending a tax increaser to Sacramento. So I would urge the people of Fresno County to vote no on Measure E, vote no on David Tangipa, and vote yes on Radonovich. Thank you very much.
Good morning. When was the last time you truly saw Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, and the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association stand alongside each other in principle and purpose? When? Never, would I guess. Well, today's the day by saying no to a tax which punishes the working man. It has been said that the rich do not need representation. Why? Because they buy it in the way of votes and lobbyists and silencing good people who sit currently in office. It is the working poor which need a voice and can't afford to fight these ministers of propaganda. It is those people and these people from which we stand today. While the backers of Measure E make emotional appeals and use spirited rhetoric, we must see this thing for what it truly is. This is a shift of liability and responsibility from the state of California to fix their buildings to Fresno County taxpayers. It's never been done before in the state. And about 50% of the students at Fresno State come from outside of Fresno. So now, the people of Fresno County, one of the poorest counties in the nation, fourth the last time I checked, is the bank for Fresno State and the state of California. This measure seems to be employing a tactic as old as time, wrapping themselves in red, white, and blue and shouting, "Go Dogs." The truth is, they say it's a penny for every cup of coffee. Well, the coffee's $4. And a Big Mac in some areas is 14. Here's a partial list of the things that they want to tax. Most of the basic things and the basic needs of the working poor, like 1, clothing, food, gasoline, shoes. When I was president of Fresno Unified School Board of Trustees, I saw poverty firsthand. Most people ate out of fast food restaurants because it's cheaper and quicker. These backers of this measure want to tax their food. For what? Buildings in which these kids will never enter into? Halls which they'll never see? Or stadium games which they can't afford to attend? Do you know that the president of the university, Dr. Jimenez Sandoval, has never, and I mean never, asked the assembly person for help on his budget or buildings? Never. That's a shame. Assemblyman Jim Patterson, who served our area for 12 years and now is finishing, has never entered a bill. Not one time in 12 years. Has he ever entered a bill or anything else that could help Fresno State? Where the hell you been, Jim? Governor Newsom has been, by my count, to Fresno at least 3 or 4 times and has never been to these halls and never seen these so-called buildings that are falling down. Nor has he put any extra money for Fresno State in the 8-year run of budget surpluses run by this state. Read the literature, which I brought today. $400 million of the $1.2 billion is going to future campaigns and administrative costs. We're going to be funding a propaganda machine against ourselves with this. This is them. Pastor DJ Kreiner told me the other day that Martin Luther King said this: whenever men and women straighten their backs up, they're going somewhere. Because a man can't ride your back unless it's bent. And voting is how we change that. Some of you may remember reading about the infamous day, December 2nd, 1964, on the steps of Sproul Hall in Berkeley, California, where Mario Savio gave maybe his best speech of all time, when he said, quote, "There is a time when the operation of law becomes so odious, it makes you sick at heart, that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to throw yourself on the gears and upon the wheels and upon the levers and upon all of the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop." Go to the website, measureesucks.com, and learn more about this measure and who supports it. And vote no on Measure E on March 5th. Take back our county from those who seek to do harm. Thank you. We'll now hear from Kat McElroy of the Libertarian Party.
Hi, I'm Kat McElroy, Vice Chair of the Libertarian Party of Fresno County. In 2022, voters of Fresno County rejected the original Measure E overwhelmingly. It needed 2/3 to pass, and it failed by less than 50%. That means that this time around, they wanted to make sure they could get that lower vote threshold. And they ran an end run around, put it through the county supervisors. The county supervisors voted unanimously to put this on the ballot. It was because of that process, it was put through with a very short window and an early window to have arguments against it in the voter guide. So this time around, it looks like there's no argument against Measure E because of this end run that's been done. And additionally, we have a lower vote threshold. Last time we rejected this with 53% of the vote. We can do it again. We can reject this. That's what we need again. But it looks like they're trying to push this through no matter what. In less than a year, or in a year and a half, they're putting it up to voters again. And they've changed it slightly so it looks a little different, but it's the same thing. It is an unprecedented tax. No other Fresno State school, or no other state schools in California are funded by a local sales tax, and there's no reason that we should be doing that here in Fresno County for the reasons that my colleagues have suggested earlier. Fresno County residents should not be footing the bill for the mismanagement of Fresno State funds. If there are maintenance that needs to be done, that should have been provided for, or there should have been requests done way ahead of time to make sure there's funds for this. There's plenty of opportunities for voluntary funding of Fresno State. They bring in lots of money through other voluntary contributions, and as a libertarian, that's the way I would prefer that Fresno State would get funded. But it is a state school, not a Fresno County school, and it should not be funded by aggressive sales tax. Regressive sales tax means that the poorest pay as much or more as the wealthiest in the county. We need all the residents of Fresno County to know that this is not going to benefit them. This is not the right way to go about funding Fresno State, and they need to vote no on Measure E. Thank you.
Good morning. If I may for a second, the reason Democrats, Republicans, and bipartisan leaders are here today is not to oppose Fresno State. All of us have done our part to support Fresno State. Some of us pay our state taxes, our gasoline taxes. We pay our students tuition when they attend Fresno State. We buy football tickets to the stadium. We even buy corn from the local farm. But we do so in a way that's voluntary, and we do so when we get something in return. most of us are also donating our time and donating our money to this university. I personally, as a member of the alumni board, I donate my time and my money to this university. I do so proudly. As a member of City Council, we also donate our resources and our time to the university. But we don't do so in a way that supports a flawed initiative. And this initiative is flawed deep to its bones, even though they're not bulldog bones. It was crafted by special interests for the benefit of special interests. It's been funded by special interests and now even Chinese special interests. That should be alarming to everyone in our community. It is essentially going to double tax only Fresno County residents for a state university when their kids may never attend the university, and when it's not even offering us a free, box of corn in return for it. What offends me of this measure on the structure of it is the university doesn't make the decisions on what they fix. It's a group of 5 political cronies and insiders that will determine what buildings get fixed and when they get fixed, and if they ever get fixed by this measure. What is assured is that $250 million will go to this football stadium that's used a handful of times a year. $250 million could buy you and build you 2 brand new high schools in our county. And the way the proponents have described this is that we would be giving up a latte a month. Here's what they don't know, and they're so disconnected and out of touch. The vast majority of our residents don't buy lattes. They buy their coffee the old-fashioned way. They go to Walmart, they go to Costco, they grind it, they take it home because they can't afford that monthly latte. What the proponents should be telling you is that this latte that would be at our expense would only benefit a handful of millionaires and their Chinese investors. That's who ultimately gets the benefit of that latte paid for by the hardworking families of this county. Taxing the poor to enrich the rich is not a democratic value. That's why the Democrats are standing against this measure. This measure would also make us the highest tax county in the Central Valley. Let me say that again. The highest tax county in the region would become Fresno County. Republicans and business leaders have told us for generations to keep taxes low because it attracts businesses. In the world of e-trade and distribution centers, the distribution centers would have all the right to relocate or locate to the neighboring counties because they would be charged less taxes and their customers would be charged less taxes by simply setting up shop in Madera or in Visalia. The last time I checked, Republicans and business leaders were anti-tax. In this case, the Chamber of Commerce has become a pro-tax institution. Shame on them. In short, this measure would hurt the poorest in the state to bail out one of the richest states in the country. I represent the 93704 zip code, with the highest concentration of poverty in the United States. Why should their families bail out the state so that kids from Marin County can attend a university with a newer building and a better football stadium, when there's no direct benefit to their families? This measure does not include a tuition discount for Fresno County residents or students. It doesn't even include a discounted ticket to a football game for paying the additional $1.5 billion in taxes by local residents. And it doesn't even provide you the proper oversight. When we passed Measure Z for the zoo, as a member of the Measure Z tax authority, I get zero compensation for making sure that Measure Z funds are appropriately spent. And that's the way it should be. If you're on the multi-billion-dollar Measure C oversight body, you get $75 a meeting for a couple meetings a year. That's the way it should be. Since when did we decide to pay former politicians and insiders millions of dollars to dole out billions of dollars of taxes? If they want that job, they should run for office, not call this a volunteer job. In short, this tax measure, structured by and written by a handful of special interests to benefit a handful of special interests, has earned the opposition of Democrats, Republicans, bipartisan leaders, and even the League of Women Voters and tax advocates and libertarians. I ask our Fresno County residents, if you want to help Fresno State, volunteer and donate to Fresno State. If you want to help Fresno State, elect better state representatives that do their jobs and bring money home to Fresno State. If you want to help Fresno State, send your kids to Fresno State and pay their tuition. But those of you who can't should not be burdened by another tax to benefit a few rich millionaires. Thank you.
Good morning, Eric Payne, ERICPAYNE, former trustee with State Center Community College District. I'm here to speak to share with you and impress upon you the issues that Measure E is bringing before the voters. I would issue a grade F to the administration for transparency. Lack of transparency to engage the public, lack of transparency to bring all stakeholders to the table to have these really important conversations, but most importantly, an F grade for the financial burden that they're going to place upon low-income voters in Fresno County. It's disappointing, and it hurts to see that this is happening on the backs of Fresno County voters. We know that Fresno State can do better. We've seen it in the past. We've seen what community partnership looks like with the institution. But in this case, with Measure E, that did not happen. And we would issue a strong voice of opposition to this measure, firmly on the premise of we don't believe that $14 million needs to go to an oversight board. We don't believe that there's going to be a benefit to those who are often on the margins of the decision-making process that live here in Fresno County. And so we earnestly issue a call to the voters of Fresno County, and we say, please vote no on Measure E.
Hi, my name is Dee Barnes, and I serve as an alternate on the Fresno County Democratic Central Committee. And we took a stand on this position a month ago to ask voters to vote no on this. We believe this is a regressive tax. It's going to hurt everybody. It is the responsibility of the state to take care of the college. Personally, my father, my husband, my daughter are all graduates. We've always supported this state university, but this is the wrong way. Like everybody has said today, this is the wrong answer. So I just urge all the voters to vote no, and the local Democratic Party has taken a stand urging voters to vote no. Thanks.
That's it. So at this point, we'll just take any questions if you have any.
So I did meet with the president last year on other budget requests, never specifically for the stadium or for all the other, deferred maintenance that it is outlined on the Measure E, or even like scholarships that they claim to also be funding through Measure E. So never on those issues. On other types of funding, absolutely yes. But again, the state budget could have, in previous years, in the last 8 years where we had surpluses, could have earmarked, funding for it if one of the state electeds would have. The assembly member that represents this area is Assemblymember Jim Patterson, and to my knowledge, I've never heard him ever ask, the state electeds or the legislature or the governor to have money earmarked in the budget for Fresno State. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
I have a question. If you read the ballot measure, there's some endowments that are created for academics, but then the rest of the ballot measure is sort of not spoken for, and the proponents have this huge list of projects. I'm seeing a disconnect between the two, and so I'm just curious, do you have concerns about the project list that's been put out by the proponents not actually materializing?
If I may, to your question, whenever a school district or a state center community college district pass bonds, they list these exact projects that will be built. Whenever there's a sales tax like Measure Z and Measure C, there's a tier system that's identified on the project list. The first tier is the guaranteed projects that will be done in the lifetime of the measure. The second tier is if there's extra money or matching funds that are discovered. In this case with Measure E, they just put everything in the bucket without any real commitment to do any projects on any specific timelines. That means that the 7 members of that oversight committee will have complete flexibility to fund whatever project they want and wherever they wish first or at all. And that's one of the huge roadblocks for us is you know what you're getting with Measure C and with the zoo. And you know what you're getting with school bonds and community college bonds. You don't know what you're getting with Measure E because it's up to 7 folks to decide what actually gets built out of that 100 list of projects.
Councilman, you say that you're happy to support the university when you get something in return. The president here would say that the students in Fresno County could be, getting recruits of this, getting something in return. How would you respond?
That's not true, and here's why. School districts and community college districts are open to everyone who walks through the door. They're access to all. There's no admission criteria, there's no selection. At Fresno State, it is a state university and you must have an admission criteria. That's why the majority of students at Fresno State are not from Fresno County. More importantly, when you put flyers out there that you're gonna develop nurses, less than 10% of the Fresno State nurses are from Fresno County. The vast majority of Fresno County residents are rejected in the admission of high need programs because they're a state university and they must take, in essence, the best and the brightest from across the state. And our kids are always at disadvantage. There is no guarantee that your student will be admitted to Fresno State, and if they are, there's no guarantee that you will even receive the scholarship that's funded by Measure E. It could go to anyone across the state that is attending Fresno State, and that's the fundamental challenge for us. If it's paid for by Fresno State residents, then there should be a direct benefit. Remember, this is a double tax. We already pay for the state university system and our state taxes and our sales tax. This would tax us a third time without a direct benefit to our kids who decide to attend Fresno State from Fresno County.
According to Measure E, it says that we're going to see more teachers, engineers, and nurses. That's all we see. Is that what we're going to see right after we spend this money?
Well, here's the challenge. Measure D doesn't control that. Measure E doesn't control that. The state of California does. The state of California, based on its annual operating budget that it allocates to universities, determines how many students you can serve a year. No tax measure can override that. Because if the state doesn't give you operating money, you can't fill the building with new additional students. So Measure E simply builds buildings. And these buildings will be twice as big as the original ones, but the state ultimately determines how many more students you can enroll. And the fact is, Fresno State and every state university has had declining enrollment for the last 3 years. So asking for more money for more students when you have declining enrollment seems to be the wrong priority. They should be focused on improving their academic structure to compete with the private universities who are bleeding out most of their kids.
And what we're seeing is over 950 students African American students are being locked out of admissions by Fresno State who meet CSU system requirements and A through G requirements. We also recognize that there is a huge disproportion around academic disqualification for students who are not meeting their basic needs, and then also looking at those admission standards for students in our region who are just not getting the opportunity.
They're not showing the school in any of the ads?
Because it's against the law. The school's not supposed to be advocating for a ballot measure. I would argue that when this school is borderline every single law outlined doesn't allow university to get involved in political ads. I mean, they have funded an Elevate campaign with state university funds that matches exactly with a political campaign of Measure E. It's not by coincidence. And the last thing I would urge the public is, the university has historically paid for upgrades, especially to athletic facilities, through philanthropical sources. People who benefit from the university donate to it. Where are the Carr brothers? Why haven't they given a dime to fix a stadium? Where are all the NBA superstars that we've generated locally that benefited? Instead, they're asking my mom, a retired farm worker who's paying for coffee at Walmart, to pay more so that the next David Carr can come out of the stadium. What I would ask the David Carrs of the world is, it's time to give it back now. And if they were giving back, we wouldn't be asking poor people to pay more taxes in order to fix a light bulb at the stadium.
You mentioned borderline communications. Any examples? What makes you feel that FS, Fresno State Communications?
Sure. I will just tell you from my last alumni meeting of the alumni board, we had a senior leader there advocating for passage of Measure E and for the benefits of Measure E. They're using the Measure E network to ask folks. They're using Fresno State students to drop mailers at doors. Fresno State students who have never been to the city of Fresno outside the campus. So it's a clear coordinated campaign between the state university officials and the political campaign of Measure E to try and pass a measure under the umbrella that it would help, the region. There is no guarantee that this money would ever help a Fresno County resident directly. And the only guarantee is that the proponents of this measure will have billions of dollars of new construction jobs awarded to them.
The last thing that I want to add, because I know you mentioned the shortage of nursing and engineers, and there are other things that we can do. For example, I just introduced a piece of legislation that I would allow in a pilot program community colleges to give bachelor degrees in nursing. That's the way that we solve the shortage of nurses, because guess who goes to the community colleges? The most diverse students and the local students here in our community. So we have to be creative about how we address the issues, not just asking our taxpayers, especially the poorest folks here in Fresno County, to pay more.
I hear a lot of opposition to this oversight committee or oversight board. Can somebody talk about the Richard Spencer and Course construction of it all, or are there any concerns with that issue?
Well, the only thing that I will say that I hope the press continues to cover, regardless of what happens of the outcome, to really see how this gets implemented if it does pass. However, we're hoping that it doesn't, because I think it is a misguided tax. And again, we're counting on you guys to make sure that we keep folks accountable if this unfortunately passes.
So, and I will say that when myself and Miguel were at Fresno Unified together in different capacities, we've already seen how this plays out. And it was played out in a term called lease back. Go back and read the stories of how that played out. And then today we find out with an article from GV Wire that there's 1.4 million coming from other additional sources that are the same person that you just mentioned. This is ridiculous. This is about how many jets do you need? How many vacation beach houses does a one person actually need in this county? We're talking about people that need food, clothing, and shoes. This is ridiculous. We need to vote no on this measure.
And if I may add, I would ask the proponents this direct question. Have they been promised an appointment to the $80,000 a year job of oversight? My understanding is Mr. Jim Patterson has been promised that gig. Supervisor Brandau, Supervisor Quintero, to name a few, have been promised that $10 million award for the next 25 years in their next retirement gig. $14 million. So ask them directly. And I would be way more comfortable if all those individuals gave their word that they wouldn't serve in that oversight capacity. Because you should not be voting to place taxes on the ballot for the benefit of your major campaign contributor, and then serve on the oversight committee that's going to pay you $8,000 a year. And that's a question for those folks who have been pushing this ballot, because they have a history of being anti-tax. They just now happen to find a tax that they like, and one that I believe directly will benefit them after the tax passes.
Thank you. My last question, there's clearly strong opposition here. Ballots have already gone out in the mail, and on that ballot it says that there are no opponents. Would somebody like to talk about that?
Sure. So I was in contact with James Coos, the election officer for the county, right after the County Board of Supervisors had passed and said because it was their duty to pass it. And I asked him, I said, when can I write an opposition piece? And he said, I talked to him on his phone while I was on a walk, after November 16th. After November 16th, I contacted him and I said, okay, when can I write my piece? And I have it on a text message that says, December 11th, 5 p.m. is the deadline. This was on December 7th that I reached out to him. And then I said, no need to call me back. That's fine. He called me back that afternoon and says, oh yeah, sorry, I made a mistake. It was November 16th. Myself, I call it a lie. And in 2026, James Coos has got to go. We don't treat people in Fresno County like that. We tell the truth of what it is and when it is. And that's why there's no opposition on that deal. And that's why we're all standing here today. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, because I gotta go.
Thanks. See you.
I gotta go.
Very good to see you.
Good to see you.